but our next speaker is special even in this elite circle of speakers, and I'm very happy and proud that he is here. I must tell you the story. Herbert, to some extent, is also the co-founder of this conference. So in his time as a team leader of our national pole team, he came up with the idea to open such a conference and to get it done. And as he built up a strong community in the waters, so we decided to take the risk and to start. I think it was 2004 with the first edition. And since then, Herbert is always around and always with great commitment for all these conferences, including this year. He is now a worldwide renowned expert, but still actively coaching, successfully coaching in his new home, Switzerland. Herbert, welcome to Cologne, welcome to the podium. It's your floor.
Nobody saw my password, hopefully. Where is everything? It's gone. It's not good. There? Okay, then I just have to start the presentation. Well, when Wolfgang asked me, I go up here also. Wolfgang asked me in the summer if I would take this lecture, this topic. I thought, yes, it's really something that should be interesting for many of us. And then I met some of you on the way. Also, I met Scott Simpson. I don't know if he's here at the moment. Yes, I know why he's not here. Because he told me, when I told him at the stands in Zurich at the Diamond League meeting, that I will speak about planning 2019, 2020. They said, you know, 6 weeks are over already. I've finished my plan, so I don't need your lecture. So he didn't quote it like that, but kind of. The other setback I got was yesterday in the morning when I was having a technical session with Angelica Moser, my best pole vaulter in Switzerland. And I told her that, well, after this session I'm going to go to Cologne. And she asked me, what are you going to talk about? And then I said, well, I'm going to talk about planning. And then she said, planning? You? Okay. So I'm a bit nervous. You may notice that, especially now. I think it's going to work soon. Here we are. We're talking about the challenge of planning our training for the seasons 2019 and 2020. And we have a really big challenge because we have a new ranking system that will be used for the qualification for the World Championships and the Olympic Games. At least that's what we think right now. I heard some rumors that in the IAAF there is different thinking meanwhile. I don't really know about that, but for the possibility that it will still be used. It is quite useful that we're here because I try to make you acquainted with the intricacies of that system. And that's probably not so easy to deal with that because the international competition calendar in the next 2 years is especially tight. So we have to really think about, planning. When we think about planning, having heard Martin talk about periodization systems, it might be very important to rethink everything, how to adapt it. And I would like to offer some parts of a strategy, not a complete strategy. I would like to talk about how we can adapt performance analysis and transfer of training effects into our training planning, which periodization strategies we might use. I will pick 3 periodization systems: traditional, block, and fast transfer, as I call it, the Bondarchuk system that Mark was talking about. And of course, there's no perfect periodization for all. The individualization of the training is key, and maybe more than before in our thinking, after having learned what Martin has said this morning. So if you look at the calendar, we see in the coming months, 24 months roughly, that we are having still 16 weeks to go for the European Indoor Championships in Glasgow. After that, it's about 19 weeks to the European Team Championships, which will have only 1 athlete per country, but which is quite important for this particular athlete, probably. Then we have 8 weeks more to prepare for the World Championships in Doha, which are placed unusual date at the beginning of October. And somewhere in between there are the national championships of the various countries, and these national championships are normally the most important qualification competition, which is probably a little bit different in the coming 2 years. Then we have 23 weeks after the World Championships in Doha until the World Indoor Championships, which are taking place in the middle of March, quite late in the indoor season. Then we have 23 weeks to the Olympic Games, to the athletics part of the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Again, in between there must be some national championships as the most important competition on the national scale to qualify. And then we have a very short time, just 3 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks, depending on the event, the European Championships in Paris. You may remember that the European Athletics Association has, or European Athletics as it's called now, has decided that they want to have the European Championships not all 4 years, but all 2 years. And we have been experiencing that since 2012, and always the Olympic years have been quite problematic because some countries are not sending the best athletes to European Championships just a few weeks before an Olympic Games. And so this time they placed it afterwards, which will take place at the end of August then. And we'll see what that will bring. It is a very short time. There may be very good international meets in between, even after the Olympics Games, before the European Championships. That's not quite clear yet. So that's the overview of the calendar, and we can see that that's really a tight combination of competitions going on in that time. And we as coaches who are working with athletes in that time have to do some difficult decisions, how to train, how to prepare for all that. This is just some of the challenges of the next 2 years, and so this is something that we really have to keep in mind, that the athletes must show up very often. And this fact that the athletes must show up at the competition successfully very often is being even a higher problem if you look at the qualification system that is going to be used. And this is some sentences of the IAAF website presenting the system about a year ago. Interestingly, we can't find the ranking system right now officially. We just can't find it on the preliminary pages still. If somebody has the link, it's not the IAAF link, and that's a weird sign about a year before. So the hope of the IAAF was that for the first time in sports history, athletes, media, and fans will have a clear understanding of the hierarchy of competitions in athletics. And the rankings will bring much needed clarity to what is today a confusing competition picture. Well, having a closer look at it will probably generate a reaction like that. The clarity is not so clear to me at the moment. This is the page as we see it. We have it's almost like a world best list, but we can see here no heights. You see a score for every athlete. And the sequence of the athlete is almost, at the beginning at least, it's very similar to the world best list, but there are some differences. And what's really getting to be used to is this sequence of scores. And so I would like to introduce you to the scores a little bit so we understand it better. And for the invitation for the World Championships in 2019 and to the Olympic Games in Doha, that's the momentary situation as it's decided by the IAAF, is that in the technical events, 32 athletes will be invited, including the reigning world outdoor champion, the winner of the 2019 IAAF Diamond League, in some certain events, the leaders of the IAAF challenges, like the hammer throw, the race walking, and the combined events. And there may be even some tourists from the host countries, but this problem will probably not too big in Qatar. There will be even some super standards to make sure that every other strong athlete will be able to come, maybe not ranking 20th or 30th or 40th in the world best list, but maybe a little bit above. We have expected these super standards at the 1st of November, but they're not released yet. Another sign of possible problems. And the end of the qualification period will be the 6th of September 2019. How is the ranking score calculated? The ranking score is the average of the 5 best performance scores. The 5 best performance scores in the technical events. The performance score is calculated from a result score and a placing score. The result score is according to the IAAF athletic scoring table, which is only available in printed version. It's different from the decathlon the decathlon scores. They did not release the formulas how to calculate it. It's kind of weird in that respect too, so you really have to pick every number manually from a printed table to know exactly what a result is worth. If you want to play a little bit with software, as I like to do, it is really not easy. Not very easy. The placing score is the second number that is added to the result score. It is based on a rank in a competition. And the competitions are organized, the placing scores are categorized, and the placing scores are different in each category. There may be maximum 2 indoor competitions, and there is a degrading of the performance score after 10 months. They are valid only 12 months, but after 10 months there will be some numbers deducted, and we'll see that in one of the following slides. And this is about the placing score table. So we can see that there are 12 categories of competitions, No, there are 10 categories of competitions. It's here on the top line of this table. We can see here the numbers and the placing scores which are given for each rank in one of these competitions. The first category is the Olympic Games and the World Championships, ranking highest. Then there's the Diamond League Final, just one single competition. Then there's a category which includes the World Champions indoors and the Diamond League meetings. Then the European Championships and some other high-ranking competitions too. I just picked out the competition that might be interesting for us in this respect. Then the European Championships indoors, the World Indoor Tour competitions and the World Challenges is the Group A. And then there is the first category important for everyone. This is where the national championships are ranking. The Universiades, the Team European Championships, and some other competitions. Then at the Group C we have the U20 World Championships and the U23 European Championships, and so on. There are some international championships in the category D, and there's the second to last category with the national permit, international competitions, and the rest. So if you do any competition anywhere, then you still get as a winner 15 points. There are some more rules. There are very many side rules. You know, the wind is being considered in the events that are wind depending. It's not relevant for the high jump and the pole vault. But you can see that there is some deduction or some addition caused by tailwind or headwind. And then please go overview again. We've had that before. Then I tried, because we are generating a mixed score made from a performance score and from a placing score. I tried to convert the placing score into centimeters. So we can see that in the high jumps, it's roughly 9 to 10 centimeters, 9 to 10 points, which deliver 1 centimeter height. And in the pole vault, it's around 3 points, which deliver 1 centimeter of height. Which is quite interesting if you take a closer look a little later. And this is the resulting conversion. The resulting table is to convert for the pole vault men these scores from place 1 to 10 or from place 1 to 12. And so we can see the 12th in the Olympic Games still is being added 37 centimeters to his performance, which is quite a lot. If we can see that the national champion is also getting 37 centimeters in addition. I've done it also for the women's pole vault, but sorry, I don't have it for the high jump. So now let's have a closer look at the world rankings. And I really wanted to see which impact have these placing scores on the ranking in the IAAF ranking list. And you can't do that automatically. I have to manually transfer, oops, just a moment. I had to manually transfer this table into an Excel sheet. I did it for the 51st in the IAAF rankings, in the high jumps and in the pole vaults. Just to find out what is the base of the final number. This is only what we see in the list, but you don't see for every athlete what it's based on. And as I said, I did it manually and I calculated all these numbers. The first step, I just compared the IAAF ranking here from 1 to 50 with the position of the respective athletes in the world best list, which is scaled here. So you can see there is an athlete here who is way lower in the world best list than he's in the IWF ranking. Here, this, I think it's a female pole vaulter. She's ranked around 37th, 38th, and in the world best list she's only around 70. And in the beginning it's quite consistent. For the first 10, 15 places there's not much diversion, but after that it begins to change. And there are some that are really having problems in the world best list compared to their ranking. There are some people at this side of the line that are doing better in the ranking list compared to the world best list. And it's a very similar picture for all the other events too. Here the men's pole vault, high jump women, the high jump men, it's the same. So we get a very distorted look on the world best. If our starting point is the traditional world best, which is ranked by the best result in a season. This is quite different. And if we know that here at this position at 32, there is the closing door for taking part in the World Championships and the Olympic Games, we can see this might have some impact on our traditional thinking. We might have to change many things, probably. And that's when I decided to take an even deeper look into the ranking score. So that's what I just said. And then I did this manual transfer of these numbers, and I created this chart for every discipline. This is the high jump men. And we can see here on the left, we can see the names of the athletes. It's about 50. Here the red line is showing us all of the athletes above are going to the World Championships. Those below, if they're below this line at the 6th of September next year, will not go to the World Championships. And here we have the blue columns, which are showing the performance score. So the score of the results in the competitions based only on the height. And it's a mean of the best 5 competitions. So the blue show the mean of the best 5 competitions. By the way, we can see here what the points mean height-wise. So I put the numbers here. And what you can see is that there are athletes that have very long columns here for their performance, for the height they got, and very short columns for their ranking points, or placing points, let's say. So for instance, here we have an athlete at rank 35 with performance score is 1163, which is ranking him performance-wise way above a couple of athletes here. Almost 10. He's better than almost 10 athletes which will go. He's not allowed to go because he does not have enough. He does not have enough ranking points. It's only 16. Maybe he was no. He must have competed. He must have competed, but he did not look at how many points he'd get for the placing in the competitions he went. And so he would really be pissed next year if he's in the world best list, probably ranking 15th or 18th. But he won't go because of that new system. If you look further at the high jump women, it's not that extreme, but still there are athletes having better performance ranking than placing ranking, which puts them quite a bit down. And on the other side, there are athletes that have lots of ranking score, and not so good performance score. So they're not that good high jumpers, but they rank in important competitions. This, of course, is raising the question, do we like that? We as coaches, is that okay? So over decades, we know that athletics is the sport of the objective measurement of performance. And that was keeping us apart of tennis or golf. They have to do tournaments, and they have their ranking lists too. But of course, they can't measure, as we can do a high jump or a pole vault, very precisely how high the bar was. They can measure who was the better golf player. They have to count the points, who was taking less shots at a certain point, or which tennis player was beating the other tennis player more often. So they're producing their ranking lists based on a need. We are producing a ranking list based on, well, we saw it in the beginning, based on a speculation that we need a better order probably in our competitions, which is okay for me, but which is producing not a fair picture looking at the performance of the athletes. Because sometimes you try to get into a Diamond League meeting and you don't get the spot, somebody else gets it. And there are no clear rules yet who will get the spot. The one with a better performance score, or the one with a better ranking score, or the one with a better agent. So that's what the problem is at the moment. Same for the pole vault men, and here we can see something almost systematic. We can see some guys standing out with good performance numbers. Here, here, here. And in many cases, these guys having very good performance numbers, having low placing numbers, are American athletes. Because you know, if you want to really score a lot, you have to come to Europe to be in the big diamond leagues, and probably performance-wise they would qualify, they would go there, but they have no agent yet. They have to struggle to get into a big scoring meet, and so we can see a pattern there: who will be good and who will be not in favor of that system. Women's pole vault, very interesting thing here. There is a Brazilian girl having a low score. We will see her a little later, still in another chart. High placing score. And we may have other athletes that have better performance scores, which will not go to the World Championships next year. If that will be the picture next year. This is just the actual picture for the moment. So, if we summarize that, then we can see that the performance score, on the one hand, is a very powerful measurement because it's a mean of five competitions. It's the mean of the 5 best ranking scores. It's not necessarily the 5 best heights of this athlete, because they just pull them out of a list with the best performance, with the best ranking scores altogether. But there are athletes that are performing quite well in that respect. And we must say that the ranking score seems to be kind of a gamble factor in this game. This is something that has nothing to do with the actual performance. It has, at least for the moment, very much to do with the fact who is getting into which competitions and who's not. And in my opinion, this is something that we coaches cannot accept. We're preparing athletes, and we cannot just rely on a gamble factor if our work is paying off or not. And then I went a little bit deeper, and I stopped very quickly before I thought I'd really get mad at the IAAF, which I'm glad to support in the development department. I was checking some competitions. You know, there are competitions like the Jeux de la Francophonie. It's small Olympic Games for French-speaking countries all over the world. And they're category B. The winner has 100 points. Then there is something like Ibero-American Championships from this year. It's also ranking B. The winner gets 100 points. And then there's the US American Championships, which is also ranking B. And if you look at the results, you really can't believe it. Well, it's just one of the many competitions, of course. But can we accept that? Rank 1 equals 410, equals 440, equals 480, equals 100 points. Rank 4 equals 395, equals 410, equals 455 is 60 points. But this is something I cannot really accept. So there must be either for the qualification for the World Championships and the Olympic Games, if they want to change something, they can take the performance mean of the 5 best competitions. For me, that's okay, because that's a performance that somebody can really count on, that he did it on some place on the earth during some time. But for the moment, I think the system is full of problems like that. And so this is something I think we should reject if we can, if it's not rejected by somebody else. So I just tried to put it together. The placing score is reflecting the level of the competition and the placement there, but not the quality of the competition result. So, as we have seen, there is quite an even picture from the results, from competitions that are leveled quite at the same level. The addition of placing points to performance points based on the ranking of competitions importance is widening the distance between the different levels within a world ranking from the bottom towards up. What I mean with that is, it is very hard, obviously, because if you saw the long green bars before, from below you only have the blue bars to move up in the world best list. And you're not in the competitions with the many points, so it is harder than before to be in the top list of the IAAF of our sport. Because you don't have enough high-ranking competitions. And so that's not only a problem for the qualification for the World Championships, it's also a problem for the development of our sports. Because those who are on top have no problem at all. Because they're on top, they have so many points, and every organizer of a meet will have them on their place. But it is a real problem for those who want to go up. You will see a lot of problems resulting of that over time. All right. So we can put that together, I think, because of the time I stepped through that, we can see that this system is not well thought out. It is not fair from a performance point of view, and we should try in our federations, when we come home, try to spread the word that this is not a good thing developing there. It either must be removed or it must be changed completely. As it is right now, it's not good for us, and it's not good for our sport. Yes, there is also the freedom to choose, I take a few weeks off, or I have to concentrate on my university, or I have to recover from an injury. There is a lot more pressure now if you're ranking like 35 or 28 to compete, to have better results, to have better scores, performance-wise and ranking-wise. And this heat that is being generated here will heat up even a few weeks before the stop of the qualification period. at the 6th of September, because as it is planned, you can look daily at this list. And of course, these athletes are looking daily at the list because they don't because how the list is constructed. You don't know which results, or you can pick at the results and look, when is the result of my opponent being produced? Is it old enough so I can wait until he's degrading? Or am I degrading because my best results are 10 months old right now? So this is a big problem. So the timing dynamics in the new system is hard to understand, and it just creates a lot of pressure which we cannot meet in the preparation for a global championship. We need athletes that are prepared well and are going optimistic there and don't have to fight until the very last day if they can compete there or not. So there is probably one thing that we can kind of look at positive. There is a new order in the competitions. They are valued now, and this is a good thing, trying to get the media on top. At the moment, of course, it will only have the IAAF and their media contracts. The others will have problems. Like in the United States, they have a trial system, and as you told me this morning, if the NBC wants to see the 3 winners, which will go to the Olympics, and they will show their round going with the flag, this is something that needs to be transported. But if it's not clear, because there are 8 weeks to go from the trials to the 6th of September, then this is something that really is ruining a lot of aspects in our sport. Well, there are many points. You will get the presentation afterwards that might have problems within themselves, which I will not mention here because of running out of time. So let's go to our second part of the challenge. How can we improve our planning to cope with these challenges we have seen? And of course, as long as we don't know if there will be a change in the ranking system or not, we can only go back to our small little desks at home where we're writing down our plans. And so I wanted to give you some principles that might reflect many of the thoughts that Martin was trying to give this morning, and that are probably already part of our knowledge, and that we don't have to invent the wheel from the beginning. So what I would like to do is I would like to sharpen your view on your training and try to follow me in the respect that we may have 3 layers of training that we have to organize. There is the lowest layer here is the unspecific training. That's the functional base of our bodies. The body's working correctly, can move in the angles that we need for our sport. We are endurance enough, even as pole vaulters and high jumpers, to be able to stand through the training. And so everything we need to have a good base in our sport in an unspecific way may be important there. Then there is the second level, which is the semi-specific levels, I would like to call it. And from the pole vault view, this would be all the training that helps us to generate more energy input and try to help to improve the energy transformation during the pole vault. The high jump, it's maybe a little bit simpler. You don't have the pole, you just have the pole, the body that has to be stiff enough to reflect the forces you generate as energy input into the right direction to have a good height. And then as the third level, we have the specific technical competence that we need to fulfill the task of our event. As we'll see, there are two steps we go through as coaches. First, we are let's go through that with that slide. We're going through an analysis process, and I would suggest we'll do this top down. We start with the technical performance parameters, maybe the length of the approach, the height of the grip, the strength of the pole. We compare that with the factors of the athlete, the height of his reaching, his body weight, and everything else, and some more technical performance parameters which are available in your country. In Germany, we have a very high developed biomechanical information system. We know all the angles, we know all the speeds throughout the jump, and we can try to concentrate, of course, on those who are really important. It will help us to develop an even better athlete in the future. There are aspects of the energy transformation in the special strength. That means for the pole vault, again, mostly the jumping abilities, maybe the testing with the multi-jumps, and some special strength abilities that we can measure also with the help of biomechanists in some special apparatus which help us to decide if there is enough maximum strength already, how good is it converted into special speed strength, and so on. Then we have the basic speed as an important number. How fast is the athlete already? What is his maximum strength base, which I think is very often overlooked in the pole vault, maybe also in the high jump, I don't know, because we know that all the specific strength qualities are depending largely on the maximum strength, which may not be a critical factor for male vaulters and high jumpers. Many of them develop a very good quality of maximum strength without a lot of work, or a sufficient amount of strength without a lot of work, while others have to struggle. It is a real problem for the girls. Many girls, especially through the age that they're developing their bodies through their hormones at the age between 16 and 20, they're getting heavier. And if you're not fighting back with a better maximum strength base, then you run into problems in all the above line factors. So the maximum strength base should be considered as part of the unspecific, but it's a very important part. And of course, there's the functional base. We have to look at the angles which the shoulders, the hips, the legs are taking not in the movement when being calm, and also in the movement, because we have to look if there is enough flexibility, if there is enough agility, and so we may have the task to improve our athletes in these respects too. When we coming to the conclusion that problems here, the technical parameters, have their root here in this part, we should really dive down and try to give us the answers that we need for the future process. The future process is just the other way around. We are developing the training plan, the concrete planning from the base up, depending on which answers we've been giving in our analysis part of our work, constructing a new training plan. We're trying to create a projected performance level, and I always say to coaches, this must not be numbers. You know, we know if you have a girl jumping 420 with a grip of maybe 4 meters on a 415 pole, we may project something like she's going to take a 430 pole and take a grip at 410, and maybe she's improving her technique, so she will improve her best by 20 centimeters. If the speed will improve also a little bit. We just have to dive through all these numbers and discuss all these connections between the different parts of the planning process to make it a consistent picture. And also, as a coach, because I'm watching athletes, either with my eyes or with my video, I must have a clear vision, a real concrete vision of how the athlete would move next year or in 4 years if I want him to bring to the top. And having this concrete vision will help me to have a good combination of the numbers in all these areas. So we can start out from the performance analysis of the athlete, considering his individual performance structure, his learning, development history, his strengths and his weaknesses, and his responsiveness to the chosen training methods. And this is a very important point. I think in Germany we have been looking very much if somebody is really training after the system that we suggest. If he's not training after the system, we considered it as flaky to the least. And so we did not look enough, probably in many cases, if the training that we suggested did work, actually. And we must find out the responsiveness of the athletes. That's what I take from Martin's point this morning, that we really have to look at the athlete and look how he's reacting to our training. And if there's no improvement in some respects, it may be that the talent is already at the end of the development, but it may also be that our training is not good enough for the athlete. And speaking from my own experience, I can say our eyes are mostly, if you have a group, and I had big groups in Germany as long as I've been working there, if the eyes are only on the best athletes, you're not really looking strong enough at the other athletes, and they may not improve as they could if you would be watching them more closely. You just relied so far that they're following your system and they should improve also, but it was not a big deal if they didn't improve, because they were not important for you as a coach, for your career as a coach, for the group. They were funny persons, maybe we liked them in the group, but we didn't really care about their performance. That's not good, of course, in the end. Then again here, this development vision of the athlete from that starting point that we have found out, or that we will find out every year. And then we can choose, and I will give some examples of that, from a periodization pattern for the individually optimized transfer of training effects. That's the traditional system. That's the block training system, which is being used, as much as I've heard, in Germany quite a bit. And I've also had a look at the Bonarchuk model, which is very interesting to me and intriguing. Although we cannot use it in the jumps just as it is, we would have to adapt it, but it has very interesting ideas in it. And so let's go step through that point by point. This is an example of the traditional periodization planning. This is my framework training plan for my group about 10 years ago. And you can see for all the training areas here on the left side, what I was suggesting for the first mesocycle, for the second, for the third, for the fourth, and for the fifth mesocycle. You see, I think all the squares, all the holes are filled with something you could do. And I just put in bold what I think that is really important. That is really important, and we really must do that. I put here not the examples what has to be done, but the possibilities how to fill that square. And you can see it was the thinking that we can train for our event all year long, doing all the necessary things for speed, for basic strengthening, for maximum strength. It is important many times here. For example, maximum strength for the girls, I think it's important all year long. For the boys, it may be not important at all. Maybe there are even some girls that are very strong from nature, which can produce a lot of response to very little strength training. But in general, I think it is harder for the girls to improve their maximum strength. And so we try to level out all the training through the year and try to find out which are the most important parts of the training in a given mesocycle, which I try to show here, underlying them yellow. The white ones are not that important probably through that season. And that's only the general view, and we have to individualize that from the planning process, from the analysis and from the planning process that I had mentioned before. I call that, if you look at the possible transfer of training optimistically, then I would call that it is a continuous transfer from all the training areas, from the lower level, the basic level of training areas, contemporaneous into the more specific until up to the competition level. Means and methods are accentuated following a path from general to specific in competition. So this is almost all of the time, but accentuated. The overall volume is starting with higher being increased with growing intensity, while specific training is growing continuously. So the more specific parts are getting more percentage of overall training time than before. There's a special thing I did for the technical part, for the technical training quite some time, and pretty successful until last year. I did not do the technical training in the first weeks, maybe 6 to 8 weeks, until the beginning of December. And there were two reasons for that. I wanted the athletes to get rid of the old stereotype. Because I want them to reach a new level, I wanted them to forget the old stereotype. And I know from experience that the biggest enemy of improvement is the automation process. If you do the same thing over and over and over again, and that starts with flexibility exercises or with stabilization exercises, the body learns very quickly to adapt to these. And if you don't put the next level of load on it, then it will probably not lead to an improvement there. The same is correct for technique, of course. Technique is highly automated at the end of an outdoor competition season. And if I, without break or with just a short break, begin to do technical training again, it may lead to the old problems. And so I tried to do no technical training in October and November. And you can even enforce that goal to forget the old stereotype by doing imitation exercises or trying to imitate other athletes, jumping on the other side and so on. Some of that is quite common, or doing even deliberate faults, just trying to do the body doing something that is not correct, just to feel what is not correct. It seems to be odd at the first moment, but in the long run, if you look at the whole picture over the year, this might be a very interesting thing to do sometimes, because an athlete has very good abilities to feel what is better than the other, and sometimes it's good to shake in between the extremes. The most important thing is that you can use this time to generate new hardware, as I say. You can generate a better body, better strength and speed abilities, and you have a better chance after this season of technical training to really begin with a better pattern. If you really are working carefully enough, and if the athlete knows what it's going to be. So this was just an overview of the traditional planning and how I would adapt it. And I said, well, this year I try something new. Maybe I'll tell you later what I have changed, but I've been working like that over many years now, and I'm quite content with it. Now but in the 90s, there appeared a new system by a Russian, or let me say Israeli sports scientist, Isurin. He created something what he called a block periodization program. And it was a bit hyped in the beginning. There were many publications on it, on how to adapt it and what it means and so on. As much as I heard and said before, in the DLV they're trying to work with that concept. And the recommendation is to split the macrocycle into 3 mesocycles. An accumulation cycle of several weeks to build up a massive general base of fundamental performance prerequisites and so on, without having to think about the getting tired for the technical training, because you just have to, you can leave the technical training part away. and some special training parts also. Then there's the transportation cycle, when the transforming of this basement that we had in the first weeks is taking place into semi-specific building blocks of the event. That could mean special reactive strength, special performance factor qualities, depending on the event. And the third mesocycle is a realization cycle where we're forgetting mostly about conditioning, and we're doing what we want to do as pole vaulters. So pole vaulting would be most of the time the training, following this concept. It would be the most important part of the training. There is a table of Isuri where he is pointing out that there are different timings of training effects. There is an acute training effect which is taking place during the exercise. There is an immediate effect taking part immediately after the training. I don't have enough time to follow, to really get through all these factors. The cumulative effect, which is after a series of training units to be measured, which is the most common. This is what we hope for when we see that line. The cumulative effect and a retarded effect, which was very popular in discussions of throwers years ago, decades ago, and they were really working very hard, and they found out that even 3, 4, or 5, or 6 weeks after ceasing from that strong training, they would have still progressive adaptation. Okay. And then the most important factor, in his view, is the residual effect, a change of body state and level of technical motoric qualities after a considerable time with a specific training program. So what we have trained for, what made us stronger and faster and whatever, is being transferred into the future for quite a while. And he also set up a table here with certain motoric properties, and he's setting up this table where he says, like, aerobic endurance, if you quit aerobic endurance, will stay like 30 days on a heightened level of your aerobic performance. And it's different, of course, for other qualities like strength endurance or maximum strength. It's not that long. And I also must, of course, discuss these numbers always under the aspect of the male and female effects. For the girls, I think these effects will last a lot less than for the boys, for most boys. And if you look at the training year, you can see that if we adapt that kind of training, it would look about like this. Just a moment. So what we can see is that over the year, we would have several cycles, beginning here, having a first realization cycle in November. Normally in Europe we don't have competitions in November, so we would have to find out what we do there. If we are doing mainly jumping, pole vaulting, during that time we'd have to do training competitions, or starting out putting a first series of a new competition series just to make this training method more attractive to more athletes. Then the second one will probably come at the same time as the indoor season, starting out with a new macro cycle, accumulation, transportation, and realization in the first part of the outdoor season, having another build-up in June, probably omitting certain competitions, building up again for end of July and in August. And as soon as we know or are sure that we will go to the World Championships, we could go to that one. So this is probably the thinking that's behind the block system. I just wanted to mention it here. And then just the last minute, the Bondarchuk system, training, and Martin might help in the discussion, almost always looks like this. You begin with some technique, You start with, you then follow up with semi-specific training. Here the examples are all from the hammer throw. I don't know anyone who is trying the high jump or the pole vault. And then there is the general work in the end. So the third level of training work to be done. And that's about the system. So he's looking for the immediate transfer. Within every training, he tries to have, or between trainings from day to day, from the first training to the second day, he tries to have a transfer of training adaptation from one part of our performance structure to the other. Not waiting in blocks, not, maybe this is too much also in a more complex event, maybe it's possible in the hammer throw, it might be more complicated in the pole vault or in the high jump. The high jump, I think, very much. So I can end up here. I hope I gave you some inspiration, some overview on how to plan the next year. And we can have a discussion here all day long, if you want, on the various aspects. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Herbert, for this very challenging presentation this morning to explain both the new ranking system with all its implications for our planning of training and competitions, and also giving some ideas how to master the challenge of the 2019-2020 calendar. And now to bring those two things together, then it will end up in a real challenge, not to call it a game. So unfortunately we are a little bit over time. If you accept, I would propose, I'm sure you will have a lot of discussions on this topic, and also maybe asking Herbert, maybe we have one or two questions now, and then I would like to have a coffee break for all of us. Something for the moment from your end? Yeah, please.
I wonder what was the driving force to develop the new clarity of the ranking system? That's my first question. The second one, if I may, is there any changes for the number of athletes per country that are allowed to take part in certain competitions? So could we have, for instance, in the future, 5 javelin throwers from Germany at the Olympic Games?
No. No, it's not planned to change that aspect of the rule system. There will be 3 competitors from every country. At least that's what I know for the moment. There were 2 main reasons for that. One thing is to make the preparation of the World Championships or the athletics part of the Olympic Games more calculable in the preparation. So they had big problems having higher or lower numbers than expected in some competitions. So they tried to create a system that makes it more calculable. There may be other ways too, which we have been experiencing already in the last years, I must say, in pole vault especially. And they only let like 12 or 15 athletes to a World Indoor Championships or European Indoor Championships, which was a big problem for us in some respect. But the main thing, doing the whole stuff with the new ranking system, is trying to shape the whole competition system to make it more media attractive, compared to the tennis and to the golf, and maybe to some other sports, to attract fans. If these numbers, such and such, and he will start in this place, and so on. They were just undervaluing, in my view, the current world best list, which is very good already, which we could improve probably for the matter of deciding who will go to the World Championships by making it a mean of 3 or 5 competitions, just like the performance factor we tried seeing here. But we don't need a ranking system that is really unfair for the moment. And so I'm really waiting what the IAAF will decide in the near future, if they will go on or if they will refrain from the whole system and try to get off it. It is hard to predict for the moment, there is a chance that it will go on. There is a chance that maybe next week we read in the newspaper that the IAAF is retracting this system.
Yeah, I think all of us understand and see the challenges in this program. Maybe not if you are coaching one of the top 5 performers in an event, but if you have athletes ranked, let's say, between 15 and 40, there are a lot of things coming up for us, and I think no one of us will be happy with it. So, and Herbert already mentioned it, so maybe the only chance we have to avoid it is going back home, and a lot of you came here via their federations, to go via the federations, because the Cologne pole and high jump conference will not have enough impact on IAAF to change the system. But if all of you go home and report to your federations and say, made it via European athletics or whatever, maybe there is a chance to avoid it for the moment. So, with respect to the time, 10th, when can we restart? 20 minutes break, it's fine for you? Coming back 11:10 after the coffee break. Thank you very much for the moment.